Rob Astorino, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Dan, thank you.
Anytime. So you were a former county executive in Westchester County where you did something that's kind of unheard of. You kept property taxes flat. You might have decreased them, I'm not sure, but I know that you definitely kept them flat for the most part. And like I said, in upstate New York and in New York City, that is unheard of. Now you're running for the state Senate, which obviously plays a bigger role in property taxes. What do you think the state should be doing to keep property taxes at bay in these districts upstate and in New York City that they're just growing at a rate that people can't keep up with?
Oh, there's no question. I actually did drop property taxes, and it was hard work. And that really was why I got elected and why I chose to run back then. And it's also another reason why I chose, among many other reasons, to run for state Senate this year. Just in my own neighborhood, I see for sale signs everywhere, and literally meeting new neighbors from Queens and Brooklyn and elsewhere because they're escaping New York City. So I do think there's a lot of things to tackle. You know, Medicaid was completely out of control. That's something that everyone needs to sit around the table and talk about in a realistic way without scaring people. Property tax cap that is permanent is a good thing, and I certainly would have voted for that. But I think there's so many other things that we have to grapple with that, quite frankly, they want to avoid. And they're hoping and begging and praying for a bailout from D.C., which is not a policy. That just cannot happen. So I do believe we need some relief and reform in a lot of these programs.
You know, property taxes fund a lot of things, but primarily among them is education. Some Democrats in the state legislature want to instead raise taxes on the wealthy to provide this funding source for education. I'm wondering, as somebody who's running for the state Senate, would you support a tax raise on the wealthy? Do you think that's the right way to go about filling the state's deficit? Or do you think that there's a different way to do it, other than obviously getting some help from the federal government?
I mean, the wealthy that are fleeing the state left and right down to Florida and other tax havens. No, that's the last thing that we should be doing in a state that's the highest taxed in America. So no, I think, what the Democrats hate doing is making tough decisions. But we're at a point now where we need to make tough decisions. First and foremost, we should set the goal of trying to be the most tax competitive state in the Northeast. Okay, let's not bite the entire apple and try to be number one in America. We're not going to get there probably in my lifetime. But realistically, we've got some easy pickings with Connecticut and New Jersey and some other states that are all in a race to the bottom with New York on how miserable it could be with taxes. So it's the number one issue, property taxes, but also income taxes. The state and local tax deduction, it hurt a little bit, there's no question, but that shouldn't be the excuse that the governor and everybody is using to not really deal with the big issues.
If you lower income taxes, there's going to be this gap where you can't. Right now, we're really not putting a lot away for rainy day funds. If you lower income taxes, we're going to have less money in the coffers to pay for things. Do you think that there are areas where the state could spend less to, meet what we would be bringing in with lower income taxes?
The direction that this state is going in, it's already on its knees economically because of the policies in Albany, pre-pandemic and during this pandemic. Keeping us completely locked down and perpetuating this on and on while the economy is gasping for air is not helpful. So I would absolutely sit down with everybody and talk about the big programs and the little. You can't tell me in a budget that's starting to approach $200 billion that you can't find some savings. It's just impossible to not find savings. And they came into this budget year and they added money to the budget on the come that they were going to get a bailout. That's not the way you handle things as adults. And we're seeing the detrimental effects to it as people escape New York in record numbers.
Another top issue in this year's elections is going to be the state's recently passed criminal justice reforms, which largely eliminated cash bail for low-level and nonviolent offenses. There is obviously some disagreement about that in the legislature, and I know that you want to roll those back. Tell me about your position on that, why you think they should be rolled back, and what you think should be done instead to change the criminal justice system to make it more fair.
Well, these are not low level and these are not nonviolent offenses because assault is violence. There are many others that are just as bad. This was Peter Harkin's signature bill. I mean, he's the most proud of it. He said this is his, he smiles when he talks about the no cash bail law. We see it's wreaking havoc in New York City. You have 3 New York City police commissioners, former and now the current one, saying that this is the reason. I mean, you don't have to connect the dots too far. It really goes from A to B. This no cash bail law has resulted in step B, a violence surge, shooting surge. And it's not just in New York City, by the way. Auto thefts are up 60% in Westchester County. There is no force field at the Bronx line. We see this anti-cop rhetoric that is a spin-off of this as well. And it doesn't need to just be denounced. It needs to be stopped. And so the first thing I would do is repeal this law and yet sit down with people. And this was the failure of the law. They gave no judicial assistance on this or discretion. They had no law enforcement or district attorney or judges who sat down and helped craft this law. And so you had a disastrous and a dangerous law that needs to be repealed.
All right, Rob Astorino, we will be watching your election this fall. Former Westchester County executive, now running for state senate. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much.